There we go. Yes. Cool. All right. So good evening, everybody, and welcome. Oh, hello. It's only showing on one of the screens. Is there a problem? Oh well, we can. Um, hello. Have you can see that or? Oh, okay. All right. Thanks. Okay, so the point of today is basically to discuss case studies and how to design a case study research. I have a 14-slide presentation, so the idea is not so much to focus on the presentation, but the idea is that we together talk about how are we going to design a case study to determine how the different departments in the Faculty of Management Sciences meet the needs of postgraduate students. Okay, so that's what we're going to be talking about. But so I'll just give you a little bit of theoretical background. So this is the high-level methodology that one follows when you do a case study. You can see I'm an engineer. I like block diagrams and pictures and so on. But so basically the first step is you design a case study. Now the seminal work on case studies is Yin. You probably might have heard of Yin if you've looked at case studies. Anastasia has got the book on Yin. And I have a PDF of chapter 3 of Yin, which I will make available on the wiki, because chapter 3 of Yin deals with the designing the case study. And as with any piece of research, the most important part is the design. All right. So, for example, in my PhD, I did a focus group, then a Delphi study, and then a case study. But the case study was such a big thing that I actually wrote a separate, almost proposal, so a separate, what do you call it, document that describes how I was going to do the case study. So it's called a case study protocol in Yin's book. All right, so the most important part is then to design the case study, and that's what we're going to talk about in more detail tonight. Then, obviously, you have to prepare for data collection. In my case, when I did my PhD, I had to go to Rwanda, Tanzania, and Malawi to do the interviews and to gather the data and so on. So you can see that my preparation for data collection was quite complex because I had to arrange all of that. Okay. And even for the case study that we're talking about, you will see that the preparation will also be quite extensive. Yes.
We want to talk about you had to get a feedback in order to do this. Opportunities maybe still doing this.
Yeah, no, the University of Pretoria supported me in that. Okay. Yeah, so yes, if you are looking at doing something like that, unfortunately, if you're not employed by the university, it is more difficult to get money from the side of the university. But there is research funding that one can possibly ask from the NRS and so on. NRS, National Research Foundation. Okay. No. It's the National Research Foundation, and they basically fund research at the various universities and at various institutes like the CSIR and so on and so forth. And they have calls every now and then on what funding is available. And maybe that's something which I should start including on the wiki, is funding opportunities. So, sorry. No.
But that's something that I think we all need
Okay, I've now made a note for myself here on the wiki. So I will start putting possible sources of funding up. And of course, in the final analysis, if you are doing something which is applicable to your work environment, they might also be prepared to fund you. Okay. All right, and then of course the next part is the actual collection of the case study evidence. And that will then also include the capturing of any data that you might have collected. And for me, I must say that the capturing of the data of the case study was the most difficult thing, because I had handwritten notes and I'd taken recordings, and and to put all of that into something which gelled at the end of the day was quite a challenge. Maybe if I can show you, since I've got all this stuff here. Where is it now? So basically, most of what I captured and what I recorded, I put into these databases. For each of the separate cases, I then wrote up, the introduction. This is the transcription of each of the interviews. So there was a number of questions, and then I transcribed every single one of the questions, what they said. You can see there's the next set of interviews. So you can see it is quite a daunting task, and it's quite an extensive task to do. And if possible, one should try and mechanize it. And I actually typed a lot of it because I can touch type while I was busy interviewing. But then afterwards, I had another colleague with me. He was busy with his PhD in a different type. He was looking at technology transfer, and I was looking at technology selection. So we had a common questionnaire, and then we both made notes. So at the end of the day, we could compare notes. So those are the practical things that you have to think of how am I going to do this, how am I going to capture the data, etc., etc. Okay, and that's also why I didn't bind my whole PhD, because if I had had to include all the databases and everything, the thing would have been this thick, and it was that thick. All right, okay, and then the important one where Abel will also come in and talk to you at the end, is how do you then analyze the case study evidence? Because you've got so many diverse sources. So how do you decide at the end of the day that this case study is actually answering the research question? So you can see that it's a careful, you either have to start with some other framework that you want to prove at the end of the day or disprove at the end of the day, or you have to start with very clear research questions that you want to address. Okay. Okay, so basically what is a case study? It's an empirical inquiry that investigates a contemporary phenomenon within its real-life context. So all that's saying is that we actually go to where the problem is. So we don't bring the problem into the laboratory and then interrogate it. We want to know what's happening right now down on the ground. Okay, and Anastasia is going to do that because she's going to look at how do administrative staff use social networking, or how can they use social networking. All right, so that's quite an interesting case study. And it's used where the boundaries between the phenomenon and the context are not clearly evident. So it's not possible to say that, when you select renewable energy technologies in Africa, it's only the people in government that play a role, because it's the people in government, it's the users, it's the NGOs, it's the general public. Do you understand? So it's where you have quite a complex problem that you would use a case study. And then we use multiple sources of evidence, and we've got a slide just on that. And it's especially appropriate to how and why questions. So Anastasia is going to ask, how do you use social networking? Why don't you use social networking? So that's the type of question that you can use. Now, the interesting thing is, although a case study is seen as a qualitative technique, because a lot of the data that you gather is of a qualitative nature. There is nothing that stops you from using as one of your sources of evidence a quantitative survey where you, for example, ask people to rate something on a Likert scale or something like that. Okay, so these are all the tools that you can use to gather the information that you need. Right. So a case study, the purpose of a case study is to develop and test theories in a step-by-step manner. All right. So you start with something that's previously developed, and then you compare that to the results of the case study. So if I can use again my PhD as an example, during my focus group and my Delphi study, I was looking to develop a framework of what are the most important factors that one should consider when you select renewable energy technologies in South Africa. In Africa. And so at the end of the day, I had 11 factors in my framework. And then I looked for evidence in all the case study evidence that I gathered that those factors were important, so that those factors were supported. So say, for example, the one factor was the maintenance and the long-term maintenance of the system is of utmost importance in Africa. All right. So then when I spoke to the users, there was a question around, okay, how do you maintain it? Do you find it easy to maintain? Is maintenance important for you? When I spoke to the NGOs, do you teach the people how to maintain? Do you consider maintenance when you select the system? When I spoke to the government, what quality measures do you put in place to ensure that the maintenance happens? Is that important? Do you understand what I'm saying? So out of all of those interviews, I then got support or not for the different factors. Okay. And a case study is specifically appropriate if the number of variables that need to be considered is large. Right, so I had 11 factors when I started out, and after the case study there were 13, because part of what I did in the case study was also to ask, is there anything that needs to be added? All right. Okay, so when you talk about case studies, the first thing that you have to understand is, are you talking about a single case study, or are there multiple cases in the case study? All right, so a single is obviously when there's only one case, and multiple is where you look at several cases. Okay, so for example, if we are okay, and then, sorry, let me just do the last bit. And there are special times when you use a single case study. So normally for a master's or a PhD, a single case study is not enough, because it's not giving the depth, and it's not answering the question and supporting the theory to a large extent. All right? But sometimes you have closing or critical cases that you are studying. So, for example, if one was to look at something like the nuclear program in South Africa, the nuclear atom bomb program that we had, that would be a very interesting critical study, because it is about a specific case that is very interesting and where a lot of things happened and can be learned. All right? Or if you have very unique cases. So, for example, this chap that just jumped out of space. Okay. I don't know if you're all aware of this guy that went, I think, 240 miles or something. He was in space with a balloon, and then he jumped with a parachute, well, a very fancy parachute, basically to determine whether it's possible and whether he's brave enough and all those things. Okay, so that's a unique case. So that would be an interesting case if you had a research question around, what is the tolerance of the human body, at those types of altitudes. Right, and then sometimes you have pragmatic reasons. Now, pragmatic normally means practical, and what Jens says, you're not allowed to say that the practical reason is that's the only access I had. All right. So unfortunately, at the end of the day, that sometimes is the practical reason, all right? But then you have to word it in such a manner that you convince the reader that this was really a good single case to look at, and that the single case actually gives you enough data and that it can be generalizable. All right. Okay, so when we do multiple case studies, the case study process becomes a little bit more complicated because obviously the first thing is we develop the theory. So what is the theory that we are going to test with this case study? Then we select the cases and we design the data collection protocol. And you can see that this sort of happens at the same time, or it's an iterative process, because when I first started out, for example, with my PhD, I was hoping to have some cases in South Africa. And so because of that, I had certain ideas of who I was going to interview and how I was going to structure the interviews and so on. And in the end, it ended up that the people, pragmatic, that were prepared to help me were in Rwanda, Tanzania, and Malawi. Okay, so remember, pragmatic means practical. So what have you got access to at the end of the day? All right? And so that then changed my data collection protocol. Because part of my data collection protocol was also that I had to write a budget, and my boss had to approve the budget, and I had to buy the tickets, and you understand what I mean. So the data collection protocol says exactly how am I going to do this, and where's the money going to come from, and how long will it take, and when will it happen, and you know, because obviously, especially when you're interviewing people, you have to set up appointments, and okay. Right. So then what you do is you then conduct the case study. Now, in my case, if I just go here, all right, I had 8 different cases. So I had domestic biogas and institutional biogas in Rwanda. I had these different efficient stoves and solar energy and whatever in Tanzania, and then I had efficient stoves and rocket barns in Malawi, all right? And each one of those was a different case that I was looking at. So in my case, I collected my data in a serial manner because I went to Rwanda, and then in Rwanda I addressed the 2 Rwanda cases. Okay, and the people that I interviewed were, or some of the people that I interviewed were involved in both the cases, and some of the people were only involved in one of the cases. Okay, so of course where they were both the cases, you sort of did it in parallel, and otherwise it was done sequentially. But so you can see that this conduct case study, you know, it depends on how your case works out, or where they're situated, how you then collect the data. Then the important thing is you write an individual case study report. And if you remember what I showed you earlier on the wiki, that report that I wrote, I had one for each of the case studies, and what exactly were the answers for each of the case studies. Then, only once you've written your individual case study report can you start drawing cross-case conclusions. All right. Because I now knew what the answers were and what the documentation was and everything. Maybe let me just go back here. So you will see that these were the interviews that I had. These were the documents that I gathered. And then I also did a comparison with each of the propositions. So for each of the factors that I had, I then said, does it support the factor or not? Okay, and you can see this one supported all the factors. And then I had to say, but why? So I gave the reason, the proof. Why do I say that? You know, so I then had to go and look at what the people actually said, and I had to say, okay, ERIS maintenance is important because they do keep records, and they see that as important. All right. Okay, so I hope this is starting to give you an idea of of how it works. Right, and then obviously you modify the theory, and if the case study is for policy purposes, so your case study will probably be for policy purposes, Colonel, because you're looking at the, yes. Okay, so then you develop your policy implications. So this is basically where the layman or the people that don't work in those types of environments, this is basically where you do your recommendations to say, okay, but so now what recommendations can I make based on the new theory that I've developed? And then you write your cross-case study reports. Okay. All right, and so when we do multiple case studies, we use something called replication logic, because according to theory, one would expect the same phenomenon to occur under the same or similar circumstances. Okay, but so now do you see that you need to keep the circumstances the same? So literal replication is where we use similar case studies. So, for example, if one was looking at what are the requirements of postgraduate students at universities of technology, you would then say, all right, there are, I don't know, how many universities of technology do we have? Probably about 8. So there are 8 universities of technology. So each of these become a case, and because they are a similar thing, it's a higher education at the University of Technology, we would expect replication. Right? And probably if you do that, you will find that there are certain things that are the same, but there are other things because of the environment that are completely different. Okay. And so if you are looking at whether a change in circumstances affects the outcome, select cases that differ in those circumstances. So if we, for example, say, all right, what are the needs of postgraduate students in South Africa, we could then say, let's look at the case of a distance education provider. So then we would look at UNITA. Let's look at the case of an academic university. So if we limit it to Gauteng, let's look at University of Pretoria, and let's look at the case of the University of Technology. So then we use Tshwane University of Technology. Okay, so do you see that it depends on what it is that you want to prove or disprove, how you will select your cases at the end of the day. But the important thing is that you can write beautiful pages of what you want to do, but if it's not practical, that ain't going to happen. So you need to make sure that what you are proposing is practical. All right, and then this is just the example, and you can see that the environment is the orange over here. So it was a similar environment in Rwanda, Tanzania, and Malawi, but there were different cases. And the interesting thing is that at the end of the day, the environment did affect how the selection of technology took place. So, for example, in Rwanda, it's a very structured approach, and it's completely supported by the government, and the government works very closely with the NGOs. And there, the spread of the technology has been fast, and it's been well adopted, and because there are structured programs and supported and so on. Whereas in Tanzania, firstly, you can see they're all over the show because they've tried all different types. And in the longer term, when you look at the longer term embracing of the technologies, as soon as the NGO leaves, then the technology collapses. And that's because in Tanzania, what happens is the government doesn't support it, and the NGOs come in and say, okay, well, we're doing our good deeds for the 5 years, and then they leave. So the environment definitely did have an effect on these cases. Okay, the rocket barns are, in Malawi, they have a lot of tobacco crops. And the problem with tobacco is that you have to dry it, and they use almost a forest to dry their crops. If they use normal, just normal fires with putting the leaves over it. So what they do with the rocket barns is they build a barn where they have special furrows that run where the heat is then led and channeled and whatever, and then the leaves are put at the top of the barn, and then that gives them something like 80% better, you know the word I'm looking for? Efficiency, that's the word I was looking for. Yeah. Okay, so that's what a rocket barn is. Okay, so now I want you guys to think, how are departments currently addressing the needs of postgraduate students in the Faculty of Management Sciences? So this is the question that we want to talk about tonight. Yes, we are. Oh, okay, come on. We're going to use the board. Or actually, what I can do, if we use the board, can you help us with that? Oh, okay. All right, guys. What I'll do is I'll capture it online. Yeah, I can touch type. Okay. So the first question that I have is, in order to design this case study, we obviously need perspectives from different departments. So which departments are represented here tonight? Okay, so I'm from Operations Management. Logistics? Contract Management. Office Management. Right, and sorry? HR, okay. HR and procurement. Oh, sorry. Because you're not in a department. You belong to the dean. Okay, so you belong to the dean, so you're not in a department. Okay, and if I quickly look here, funding proposal, we can quickly look at which departments they are. Okay, so there's marketing, tourism, and management, management and entrepreneurship, people management and development, operations management, business school, hospitality management, office management, and technology. So, okay, marketing, that's where logistics falls as well. Yes, yes, marketing, logistics, and sport. And then where does yours fall? Procurement. It's procurement part of logistics. Okay, all right. And yours, where does that fall? HR. Oh, that's people management. Yeah. Okay. Hello, welcome. So now I can put you on the spot because you're late. Now, what department are you from? Yeah, in the Faculty of Management Sciences. Oh, okay. So management and entrepreneurship. All right. So we have so I'm going to. I will now. Okay. So sorry, I wanted to say two there. All right. So I'm going to take that one out. So there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 departments represented, and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Okay, so we have quite a broad representation. Okay, and there are all the heads of departments. Okay, that's what I was looking at, was this organizational chart. All right, so if we are looking at how do departments currently address the needs of postgraduate students, do you think that we should use a single or multiple case study? And how do you think that we should select the cases? Okay, so there's two reasons why we are doing this. The one is to give you guys something practical that you sit in these departments, so you know what's happening in the departments, that you can relate to. And the second thing is because we've started these workshops, the Dean is asking us now, how do we take this into the future? So Arbel and I have decided that what we need to do is to do some research on what are the needs of the students, and that is where the Delphi study, which Arbel must just look at, and then I can send it to you guys. Arbel. Well, they're happening in parallel, basically, because the SurveyMonkey one is specifically related to the students. Okay, so we want to know what are your needs. And if I can just quickly get into SurveyMonkey, then I can show you what the final questionnaire looks like before the statistician looked at it. No, and now I must log in here as well. Sign in. Okay, so remember that we did the where's the preview? We did the focus group, and then out of the focus group, we basically come up with this survey. So we have the background information, which we discussed during the focus group. So where are you in terms of your research, and what are you busy with, and what describes you the best? And I don't ask departments because I don't want students to feel that I can actually track them by the use of their departments. Okay. Right, and then we decided on these scales. The Zoom. Oh, sorry. Yeah. Zoom. Oh. Okay. So we decided that we would have an importance scale, and we would have a practicality scale. So importance is basically how important is this statement to you, or the addressing of the statement to you. And then the practicality scale is, do you think this can be done? And if we do it, do you think that the students will participate and support it? Okay. All right. And then we then have student requirements whilst preparing abstracts and proposals. And then we have the things that you said we should do during the focus group. So that's the research workshops. Then there's one around the supervisors, the database of topics. The process must be simplified and clarified. And then support to complete your research other than workshops, and then financial support. And then you also have an opportunity here to enter anything that you think is missing. All right. And then basically it does exactly the same thing for each of the, so this is during, while you're conducting the research, and then the last one is while you're busy writing up. Okay, so hopefully this will go out to you within the next week for you to answer the question. And the purpose of this was to see what are your needs. All right. So now on the one side we have what are your needs, and on the other side we want to say, okay, but what are the departments already doing? Why do you think we would want to say that? Why don't we just scrap everything that the departments are doing and just start from scratch? Yes. Okay, so part of it is the gap. So what is the gap? What would be another reason why we would actually ask the departments what they're doing? Yes. Yeah, but also don't you think that one can maybe learn lessons? So there might be some departments that are doing a good job, and so instead of just saying, okay, we all start from scratch, we want to first find out, but what is everybody doing? And because what might come out is that some of the needs which you guys have not even identified are already being met, if you understand what I'm saying. All right, and the departments will be able to tell us, we do this and this and this because of this and this and this. Do you understand? And so, like, for example, in my department, and I won't say it too loud, although I am on video now, we do very little because we have very little postgraduate students. So the few postgraduate students that are there are done on quite an ad hoc basis. And, you know, to develop the research culture of the university, we have to start doing more research and we have to start focusing on that better. So for our department, the output of the study is very important so that we can not reinvent the wheel, because you don't want to every time start from scratch. Yes. Well, that's when we get to the source of the data, that's possibly one of the things that we should look at. All right, yeah. So there is already okay. So can we just let's move on, because this is what you're talking about. Is we can have different sources of evidence, right? So documents in terms of policies and things like that. Archival records in terms of maybe the pass rates and things like that. Interviews, but this can also be a self-administered questionnaire. It doesn't have to be a face-to-face interview necessarily. And then the other three sources which are stated by Jan, but which I don't think is applicable here, but you guys must help me think, which is direct observation, participant observation, and physical artifacts. Right, so physical artifacts is more when you're doing research in terms of archaeology and things like that. For my study, where I was looking at the selection of renewable energy technologies in Africa, I did use observation because I interviewed the users. And so part of the question was, all right, now show me, how do you operate this equipment, and how do you maintain it? And you understand. So there was observation, but I'm not sure whether there will be in this case study. Okay, so let's maybe open the table and maybe start listing what are the various. Okay, so this was departments represented. Okay, so let's see, sources of data. Okay, so the first one is BTech students. Right, so why would we want to ask BTech students, and what would we want to ask them?
In my thinking, these are potential buyers.
Mm-hmm.
When you first grade the product,
Yes. Yes. Okay, so are students interested in doing postgrad studies? Is maybe one of the things.
Yeah.
What else would we want to ask the PG, the BTech students?
So it's the support. It's about the support.
Okay, but so do you perceive that there is support? Okay, perception of support. And maybe also, has your interest been tickled? So, how do I put interest being tickled in academic language? Are you interested in research after your BTech? Do you have a topic in mind? What other questions can we ask the BTech students? And maybe if you are not going to do postgraduate studies, why? Why would you not consider PhD studies? Because actually, when I was still working in the defense industry, I was managing funding that came from the DoD and then went through the CSIR and then went to various universities to support masters and PhD students. And what we found was that we were battling to get masters and PhD students. It was in engineering. And so one of my jobs ended up that every year I would do a survey with what would be the same as the BTech students here, to find out, you know, why are you not going to do your masters? And the typical things that came out was, I have to go and work because I have to pay back my study loan, I have to support my family, I'm tired of studying, you know, that type of stuff. And so this is what that question would be behind. Has anyone inspired you to do research? To do a master's or PhD? So because I mean, there might be some of them that are sitting at BTech level that have a role model in one of the lecturers maybe, and they now aspire to become like that person. And
something else was also saying is, does anybody advise you on what they say? Because all of us, and the minutes that are clear about the
yeah. Okay, but this is now, remember what we're asking BTech students. So maybe that's not so. But the thing is, they're BTech students, so they don't really know what their work schedule is going to be like. Because most of them are probably not working yet. Some of them might be. Yes. Yeah. 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 So maybe what we should consider in the second round of Fidelity to maybe ask some of those questions. Okay, so all right. So who else do you think, or what other sources of data? Yes.
I just wanted to say, I believe before the BTech students can be interested, or may be interested in continuing their postgraduate studies, under the market context, someone should have marketed or rather sold products. It's not something that's open to focus.
Yeah. Okay, so has your department marketed a master's to you or something like that? Okay. All right. Okay. So let's move away from the BTech students. What other sources of data do you think? And I must say that, you know, I've like sort of got ideas in my head, and this wasn't one of them. So great. This is exactly why we're having this workshop. All right. So who else, or what other sources of data do you think we should look at? Okay, so maybe let's look specifically at documents. What documents do you know exist? Masters, brochures. I don't know. We will have to find out. Okay.
The second one is the operational plan of each department should describe something.
Okay, or research plan, whatever. Oh, we have strategic plans. Okay, what else? What other documents do you think would be helpful? Okay. Because where would I put that? What I do have is the research. Is this it? No. Okay, what I do have somewhere, but I can't find it so quickly now, is there is a research strategy for the university. Okay. And I do have it somewhere on my hard drive, but I can't find it so quickly now. Yes. Yeah. All right. Okay, so we can now maybe move on to archival records. So I mean, as we are talking, we might think of other things to add. Pass rates for PhD and M. Enrollment. Yeah. Yes.
Because that's where the interest will come in. People, if students are not participating, who will be
Yes. Yes. Well, I know that word. I don't know if we use it, but I know that word. This was a course I did this morning, and here they had, where was it now? No, I can't find it. But anyway, the statistics that they showed was something like for all courses at universities in South Africa from 1994 to 1998, the throughput rate was 17%. Yeah. No, for all. 1-7. Yes. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, that's the throughput. Yeah. Finish. Only 17%. And that's at all the universities in South Africa. Okay. Yeah. Yeah. But if you also look at the ones that start grade 1 and finish grade 12, it's also a very low percent. Okay, so that's all right. So who else, in terms of people, should we ask? how do the departments support postgraduate students?
The dean and I'm not very familiar with those functions. The head of the department and departmental head.
Yes, heads of departments. Okay, so this is, sorry? No. We have faculties and then heads of departments. Okay. And then within the heads of departments, you can get section leaders. All right. Now the heads of department was the one that I thought of. So let me just quickly open and show you the questions that I thought, and then we can. Where am I now? Okay, sorry. I'm so absent-minded, I can lose myself in my own directory. No. There we go. There we go. Case study question. All right, so this is the questions that I thought of to ask the heads of departments. So how many PhD students, how many master students, how are the postgraduate students currently managed in the department? Because I know, like, for example, marketing and logistics have a specific person that looks after all of the students. My department has nothing, right? And so there probably will be something in between, all right? And you'll probably find it's correlated with the number of students, okay? Who are the people that are most closely involved with administrative support and then with academic support, all right? How are postgraduate students supported administratively? So how, is there an administrator that helps them, or do we just take them away and say, go to building 21? And how are they supported academically, how is research methodology presented at BTech level? The duration of the course, the method of presentation, the types of assessments, because that, again, speaks to what we were talking about, the BTech students. All right. And maybe that's a question we should add. Remind me when we go back for the BTech students is, did you have research methodology? Okay. Then what additional support do you think postgraduate students in your department require? What are the main frustrations of research students in your department? Hopefully the heads of departments know that. How often are the DRIC, so that's the Departmental Research and Innovation Committee meetings held, and are they held on specific dates? Because I have been battling to get the dates. How many postgraduate students completed their studies in your department in the last 3 years? What process is followed in your DRIC to approve research proposals? Don't you guys want to know that? What process is followed in your department to ensure that a student progresses after the proposal is accepted? Okay, so, is the process of evaluating the proposal made available to the students? So do you guys know how they evaluate your proposal? What process is followed in your department to ensure quality before a dissertation or thesis is submitted for external evaluation? Right. Is the process of ensuring quality of the dissertation thesis made available to the students? Okay, and what are the main research methodologies used in your discipline, and what are the main methods of statistical analysis used in your discipline? All right. And so you can see that some of these questions are maybe a little bit wider than just what are the needs of the students. But, in terms of your needs, we also have to know what are the research methodologies. Because it doesn't help that we sit here and we teach you about Delphian focus groups and case studies and nobody does that. Do you understand what I'm saying? Okay, so I don't know if anybody would like to add a question here. I did spend 3 days thinking about it. That was while I was at the research showcase. So is there anything off the top of your head that you see is missing? And I'm not saying that this is the be-all and end-all. Okay. So how are students supported? And then Shelley in your department. for their research studies. Sorry, try again. What is the percentage? Okay. What is the percentage of students receiving financial support? Okay. Foreign resource. Okay, so what percentage of students are employed? Part-time and full-time. So there's actually two questions, but I'll make it two questions later. By the department /TUT. Okay? Very good questions. Anything else that you think? Sorry? What requirements? Sorry? Do you know what the requirements? Okay, sorry, okay, I understand. What are the requirements for students to receive financial support? Oh, and one I've just thought of is what infrastructure is made available for students to do their masters. Because like Anastasia at the moment comes and sits in my office and uses my assistant's PC when the assistant isn't using it because she hasn't got access to a PC. And yeah. And we're trying to rectify that with the lab, but I don't know when it's going to be up and running. Okay. Yeah, but so it's big type. We need big scissors. All right, but I mean, in the meantime, we can make plans like we did for Anastasia, but I think it's important that we understand what it is. All right. Yes. Oh, okay. What? Okay, so how many staff in the department with PhD? Yeah, that's a very good question. Staff in the department with masters. Yes. And then staff to student supervision. Okay. Anything else off the top of your head?
The question is, if we asking this now, so that it's a bit about like, we pay for a face-to-face interview. Something similar, or are we going to discuss something like that?
No, well, this no. We can do that again. But in essence, what we are doing here, or what we did with the HODs, is we've designed, or we've talked about what the questions are, and now obviously this would have to be some of these might have to be changed so that it's single questions, all right? And then at the end of the day, this will be the questions that we actually physically will ask. Right, and we might have to sort them around and so on and so forth. But we can at some stage actually talk about how to do an interview and things like that in a bit more detail. And what Abel was also saying, and I think that's an excellent idea, is that if some of you want to come with when we do the interviews, and you can maybe get exposure. I mean, it won't be nice if all of you come with when we see one HOD, you know, but you know, just to give you an idea of what does it feel like to do an interview. So if anybody is interested, you can maybe drop me an email, and then I'll make sure that you're not involved when it's your head of department, because that could be a little bit awkward. So somebody else's head of department, and then also spread you so that, you know, there's not like, Niels, we're coming to interview you, and then we all arrive there, you know. They might feel a bit like when I went for my interview when I started at the CSIR, there were 7 white males around the table that interviewed me. Yeah, that was terrible. And you know, just the feeling when you walk in there and okay, so I'm back to the design. All right, so here's the department we sorted. There's a separate questionnaire. Okay, so the dean. Do you think that he would be able to address our problem of how are the needs of the students met?
I think as the chief of the institution, there's some reason or views on what I know that it could be very high level.
Okay.
But
so what is your vision for postgraduate research in the faculty? What else do you think we should ask dear Edgar? What is your perception on the quality of the PG students? Okay. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. What else should we ask Dean? In what way does the office of the Dean support departments to help M&D students? Yeah, and what we're doing is an example, but maybe there are other things that we're not aware of. Okay.
there's a woman that they drop out of
Minky. Yes.
but only for
Yeah, she only works for the students that have been excluded. Yeah, and then so it's not really masters or PhDs.
which means policy does not take the group the guys who are falling.
Yeah, on the masters and PhDs. Yeah, and that's what Alban and I are here for. Yeah.
Let's just bring she is it possible
Not everybody can do research.
Yeah, it's more like race. Students were literally arguing with a lot. And you know what happened. It is true. And nobody, I can't say whoever was right or whoever was wrong. But the door was waiting to come in. And the guys were arguing for some other reason. And you knew what happened. So the guys, they just dropped out. The reason because of his work rate, or the reason because of fear of some other place. So to me, it was direct.
So basically, if we can contact dropout students, they could probably contribute to our study. But sorry, yeah. Okay, so we can maybe students that have dropped out of M and D programs. And we can maybe ask them reasons.
Just wanted to address that question under
Yes.
in one way, that the officer could be support.
Yes.
Don't we? I think it would have been more appropriate question for the head of department.
Oh, okay.
He obviously,
Okay,
she obviously can see the subjective part.
that's why maybe what we do is we put it on both. That's a very good point.
Not to feel about the message. No, it's okay.
Well, our dean already knows he's the best dean in the university. Because we all tell him that. All right, so okay, so I've added it to the HOD one as well. Okay. Is there anything else crucial that you think that we should ask the dean? Okay, because I mean it's fine. You don't have to say unless I have 20 questions, it's not worth doing the interview.
Suddenly address the restriction on MMDC. For example, you are only allowed to have only
We did address it in the sense that we asked what is the staff to student ratio, but staff, yeah. Do you have a specific limitation on this? Because that is probably yeah, but I mean, what might happen is we might find that one department has a brilliant throughput rate and everybody's finishing their masters, and then when we ask this question, they tell us yes, but we only allow 5 students per lecturer or something, and that would then be a lesson that we can learn and recommendation that we can make. Okay.
Students sit down, let's say, 1 to 28 for university schools, 1 to 15.
Huh? 1 to 50?
15, 1 5. Yeah.
Where did you get that?
I know I read my paper.
Oh, well, no. In South Africa.
You know, it's always
No. No, it's 1 to 50. Unless your child is in a private school. Yes. Yeah, and at the university, at first year level, it can sometimes be 1 to 500. At first year, second year, maybe not so much third year, but 1 to 500 is not. I mean, I had a small third year class last semester, and that was 28, and my BTEC is 1 to 50. Yeah. We put a specific limitation in project management, and we only take 50 students. So we have a block and an evening mode, so we take 100 students. But that's the limitation that we've put there. But some departments don't have any limitation. So I don't know I don't know in which utopia you live, but that sounds wonderful. Can I go and teach there?
I think we should from other
Okay. Other universities.
Oh, is this right? Yeah.
Well, so you don't think we should go for UNISA?
No,
Yeah, but UNISA has a very good system. Yeah. Yeah, so maybe it's not a bad idea to talk to them in terms of finding out what is the support structure, because I think because they're so big, they've had to come up with support structures, and maybe not all of those are applicable to a face-to-face university, but you can probably learn there. Okay, so I know the director. Okay, so other universities, let me put it here. I know the director of research at UNISA. And then at the research showcase, we had a guy from management sciences at UP tell us about the system that they have to improve the throughput. So we can probably talk to him. Okay, because again, here we're talking about practicality. So who do we have access to? Does anybody else, and also it must be somebody who's doing it well. It doesn't help to talk to somebody who's failing as dismally as we are. I didn't say that. If the dean ever listens to our videos. Yes. Okay, so what would we ask? We can think about who at other universities, but what would we ask? What structures do you have in place to support MND students? Okay, check which HOD questions are applicable. Okay, so I'll do that. Because I mean, the other thing is that the idea of tonight is not to get to the whole case study design. It's just to give you guys a feel of how to do this. Okay, so having said that, do you have a feel of how to do this? Okay. Okay, designing a case study using a focus group. We will, yeah. Yeah. We might not. Yes. Yes, that's the idea. Yeah, well, we'll probably do a presentation to you of this is the results of the case study. We might. Yes, and we'll analyze the data with you and everything. Okay. The other thing which I think we should also maybe consider is talking to supervisors. Or maybe have a self-administered survey that we send to people that are supervising MND students. Okay, but that's self-administered survey. Mm-hmm. Okay. Students that succeeded. That's a good idea. Challenges, and so the challenges that they face, but also the support. So what helped them to succeed, and what worked. Yes. Okay. That's an excellent one. Yes. Okay. So guys, in the final analysis, you know, Arvin and I are just two people, so we might not get to doing all of this. All right. Because we are not busy doing a master's or a PhD. All right. But the purpose today was to brainstorm this and put it out there so that you can see how does one design this animal. All right. Yes, for a master's or a PhD. Yes, for the faculty, yes. Crucial. Yeah. No, I mean that's why we decided to do the project, because we can see the value in the project, and then but it's the other value of it is that you also learn. Okay. So, all right. So it's now 6:30. I don't know if you want to talk about how to analyze case study data, or are you going to do that when we actually come with the data? When we come with the data. Yeah. Okay. So maybe if I just finish my little presentation here. So this is just the example of my PhD, which I've showed you. But just to show you that here were all the factors, all right? And then in each of the case studies, like for example, with the domestic biogas, there were interviews, there were documents, and there was observations. And then I looked at the first factor, which was the maintenance. And then I said, okay, during the interviews, that came out as important. When I read the documents, that came out as important. When I saw what the people were doing, that came out as important. Do you understand? So I had my framework of factors, and then I tested against that. And so you have to have some other framework to decide what is it that we are trying to do at the end of the day. Right. Especially if you're busy with a master's or a PhD. Our study is maybe going to be a little bit more wider, but we're not trying to get an academic degree. Do you understand what I'm saying? And the better, so you can probably get something, yes. Okay, guys, so thank you for designing his PhD for him tonight. Okay, and then the last thing is, this comes out of the research book that's doing the rounds, but this is basically lists the criteria that the book prescribes for good research. So you can see the purpose must be clearly defined, the research process must be detailed, the research design must be thoroughly planned, high ethical standards must be applied, limitations must be frankly revealed, adequate analysis of decision makers' needs, findings presented unambiguously, and conclusions justified. Right, and then I have already put this on the wiki, which I will send to you guys, and then you can look at how can this be achieved in case studies. Because the problem with case studies is because it's qualitative, it doesn't mean that you can just do whatever you want. It still has to be well designed, well structured. Your questionnaires have to be valid. You understand what I'm saying? So yeah, okay. So that I just put there, and you can go and read through it. And yes, then that is the end of my story tonight. I don't know if you want to add anything.
One thing you mentioned, it will be very helpful to give it because you love the results, where the analysis process how to do it.
Yes.
But how simple is it?
What? Probably going to take us until the middle of November at least. Did you see what we want to do? Yeah, we can maybe yeah. What I was thinking of was Monday to start phoning the heads of departments and to set up the interviews, because I think that especially in terms of the heads of departments, we have a good idea what we want to ask them, and to get the green will probably be not that difficult either. Okay, but and that's why I'm saying we might not do everything. But when we talk to the heads of departments, we can ask them to tell us who has dropped out, and do you think that they would allow us, or would they mind if we speak to the people to find out why they've dropped out? Okay, but the thing is, also for ethical reasons, one must be careful. And yeah, so we will just have to talk to the heads of departments and basically get their okay before we do anything like that, and also in terms of their BTEC students. Because I mean the BTEC students are under their control, if you understand what I'm saying. Right.
One of the people I am getting out working today said, which community has feedback platform? Say for example, someone finishes complete
Yes.
with MOD, then where do you get from A or B? Went up. This is where my question. That's what he said. So I didn't have an answer then. So I don't know.
There isn't really something, but I mean that is one of the things that we could recommend out of this study. Oh, that's why I didn't want to do it. Yeah, because the thing is that when we are talking about BTECs and national diplomas, there is already a process in place whereby lecturers are evaluated and courses are evaluated. But okay, so maybe that's a question we should add to the HOD questions is feedback sought from PG students on their challenges and frustrations. Now, so we've got, what, about 28 questions. So we're probably going to need about an hour and a half with each HOD. Times 8. We can probably leave my HOD because I can tell you no on all of these things. No, because we just don't have so many postgraduate students. But I mean, the business school will be very important, and like marketing and logistics have lots of, yeah, and office management have a research professor. So, yeah. Okay, so is there anything else that anybody would like to add? Because I think that this has been like quite an intensive session. So if we go home now, I won't be disappointed or feel I haven't done my job for the day. Yes. We can probably ask Portia. Portia will be able to tell us how many students. Okay, so maybe what we should add here is the faculty research officer. And what we will ask her is how many PG students receive bursaries, because she'll be able to answer that. And we might want to ask her some other things as well. EduLoan. Okay. EduLoan. Okay, I'll just put EduLoan in a question mark, and if we get to that, because we have a, you know, we want to do as much as possible, but we also have to do it in limited time so that we can give you guys feedback. All right. I've scheduled these meetings until the end of November. Yeah. It's, well, I mean, it depends on.
Our objective is to try and teach you how to do things. I think just for time's sake, we may have to say 10, something. Then we cover the whole example. We do that. And then something we take on our own. Some of our efforts, because we feel like you have the answer.
Yeah, yeah. Okay,
Don't you think it's necessary in scholars for an information to share with students for online and for whatever, and I guess we need approach
we would send progress going on. And then I was concentrating on something and I don't know where do I stand. Maybe because as I was informed, I was told that those 15 people in my the district executive and evaluate the proposal. Everything in the direction. I'm very positive that I'm really so it's like I can hear something, even if it's not me. Other proposal has been approved. It tells me that money is not to come. But when everything is just silent, because that's what's going on. You're right. And one of the things we also try and push for is to try and give feedback and content for them. But that's like proposal and so on. They say it once a month. Now, the last time they said there was an evaluation was last week during the presentation.
During the research showcase.
Yes, during the research. So the thing then and last week. And I don't know how many during the presentation, then how many of our students come here?
Not many. Not many.
So there's nothing to give feedback on in that case of proposal, now. But one advantage that both people give me.
Yeah.
There was a meeting today. What are you doing?
No, it was the X-code today. I don't sit in that one.
That's okay. But she thinks in some of this, she will try and give as much feedback as possible. And I don't know. Sometimes one thing I will take the problem. If the supervisor, sometimes supervisors are going to give you feedback in terms of approval of that. Is it correct?
Yes.
So, yes, we will give you hints, but we will keep you encouraged. I don't want to sound funny, but it's either to finish with the information or there's no information at all. Because honestly, it is frustrating. Can I give you my personal example? I am doing, or I was supposed to be doing this full time. But I've been in the dark and investing whatever decision that I took, able to resign from work, believing that I'm doing this full time. If I can tell you, I've finished, finalized even chapter 3. I'm just waiting for someone to tell me that the state proposal has been approved so that I can receive that clearance letter to take to the department and kickstart the research. Can you imagine what frustration I was warm at that time, full of information. The information that I have delved into is evaporating like a regime. So I wonder if really this is the way things are done. It's an individual issue, what I'm talking about. It affects me alone. But you'll be shocked to discover that I'm not alone. I do experience that through my company. Today, for one, someone has done this for the past 3 years. 3 years. And she gets feedback once in 8 months. That's unacceptable. But look, some of the things we are trying to, I don't know, Strawberry, you can.
So what I've done is I've added it as a question to the HOD. I've said, do you have a problem if students are given feedback in workshops regarding status of proposals? Because I think that what Obla is saying is right. I think that we don't want to step on toes, because what will happen at the end of the day is the departments will then not support what is happening in the workshops, and then the whole purpose of the workshops falls through. Okay. Yeah. So again, as I've said before, unfortunately, we will probably not solve your problems. But what we are trying to do is to put things in place so that the problems don't happen to future students. And I know that doesn't help you, and that's frustrating for you, but that's unfortunately the best answer that I can give at this stage. Okay. Yep, and what's your email for the Delphi round 1? Because Abel will look at it tonight and send me feedback by tomorrow morning. And then we can do the data analysis of the Delphi.
That will go above next week or
Survey Monkey. Well, Camo, you can switch off the video, Camo.
That's good. Those are just two English terms. Something that is logical and you analyze to see in a proper perspective the way it is supposed. Very good. That's a very good. You are shy initially. So everything is actually. Now the only thing you need, there must be a process of doing that. So you need a response. So it means technically there are about 4 terms. You will see. There must be a load, a structure, there must be a process, and there must be a response in which you can be able to arrive at that particular situation. But what is a process? It's just a route in which you can be able to arrive at where you want. So in those particular aspects you have said, at number of things you need to put it along those particular that. What of a response? It's just a reply, which you need to be. Now, the reply could be in a specific manner, which I'll not go to the detail, and that was the subject that we are doing, and we are able to see how it relates to what we have. And this is where I started last week, and we got lost how actually the whole structural analysis fits in. Structure is essence assemblage of particular units together, and as I said, a body. I've said any aspect in all worldwide, you will need to have that. There are quite many examples. That's one of the examples. That you drive when you come here, your mobile system.